is Jay and Lori Pyatt from The Couple Cure with this week's question.
How do you know that your relationship is healthier, that you're healed within the relationship? What does that look like compared to entering into recovery and the mess that looks like?
Yeah, and we're not really talking about the general things like you guys get along better and that you're not fighting all the time. I mean, that information's already out there, but we're going to try to go into a little bit deeper signs.
Right.
The first one is you're no longer thinking, I will only be okay if he doesn't return to that. I know that for a long time I felt like we were healed and we were doing better, but I also knew that we'd only be good if he doesn't return to porn. I mean, there might be things that have to happen. And if it's either me or porn, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying for the ladies who are like, I can't necessarily leave, him returning to that doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship is in the trash like it was before. You know, it could be that if you're okay with staying, that the relationship just becomes different. You know, it becomes, okay, we did the romantic thing, now you're into porn, I can't do that, so now we're just going to do this business of life thing. But we're still technically married, you know. It doesn't have to change the relationship to the extent that it used to.
Right.
And in some cases, if you feel like you're led to stay, that can be a sign of healing, that your relationship has healed to a different level. Now, again, I want to be clear for those of you who feel like you cannot stay with this man. Maybe it's more than porn. Maybe there's abuse or chronic mistreatment that you don't want to stay for. That's fine, leave. I'm talking about a lot of the women that I work with who can't necessarily leave.
Yeah.
All right. The next sign of you healing within the relationship is I'm going to be okay no matter what. I'm going to be okay no matter what. It could be that you know you will not stay if he uses porn or starts mistreating you again. But in the meantime, you can go from the we're only okay if he doesn't use again to no, we're okay right now. We're truly okay. And we're both going to truly be okay afterwards too. You know, it's no longer this like, oh, well, it can't happen. It's like, no, I know exactly what's going to happen then. And that can be a sign that the relationship has healed a bit.
I think, you know, from my perspective, one thing that shows is the acceptance of the addict. It's like having somebody who's got diabetes. They're always going to have it. It's always going to be a thing, but life can be fine as long as all of that's being managed and taken care of, and the spouse can accept her husband instead of like seeing some sort of flaw, or I'm not even sure what the right...
Just a deal breaker, maybe.
Yeah, like a consistent deal breaker.
And I think what Jay's trying to say is accepting him as an addict.
Right.
You know, for a long time in my own life, I was like, no, he can't be an addict. Like, not really, he can't be an addict, but he's got to get better. He's got to like fully recover from this.
Right.
It was a huge step for me when I was like, no, he's an addict and he's always going to be an addict. So if he wants to maintain his sobriety, we're probably always going to need some things in place, and he can always return to it. Mm-hmm. And I, you know, again, went from like, oh, this can't happen again to no, I'm going to be okay. So it's all kind of mixed together, but I do think what Jay's trying to say there is like, accept that he's an addict and he'll probably always be an addict. That's a sign that you're able to live in the reality of the relationship as it is.
Right. And it leads to being an ally for each other. Mm-hmm. So that the guy is trying, at least a healthy guy is trying to minimize his triggers and be aware of his environment and that kind of thing. But when Lori became my ally and began to warn me of things that were potentially triggering, that she would help me navigate certain environments and say, you know, don't look at your 3 o'clock or, mm-hmm. you know, something like that, so that neither one of us were getting drawn into something that was problematic. Mm-hmm. that was helpful in the relationship too. That I saw that as a new level.
Oh, cool. And what I saw as our relationship was somewhat healed right off the bat is when I would do that, Jay wouldn't go, oh,
Yeah.
don't try to tell me what to do. Or he would go, oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for keeping me from that visual thing landing wherever it's going to land. And he would turn if I said, so-and-so at 3:00, he would turn and look at his 9:00. And that to me was like, okay, he really doesn't want to see that. There's a side of him that doesn't want to see that, whereas before I just thought, oh, if I tell him 3:00, he's just going to look that way. That was a sign of healing for me as well. In the last one about how do you know you are healed wherever the relationship stands, how do you know you're healing on your own? I said you trigger less often. A sign that the relationship's getting better is you're triggering each other less often, obviously. But another one is when you're triggered, he helps you.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of goes back to that last one Jay and I just talked about, that you're helping him, but he's also helping you with the damage that the trauma from all of this has caused.
Right.
For Jay, and I'll just say for y'all, the best thing, guys, you can do is if you see her triggering, or if she says, oh, I'm having a hard time, okay, what do you need? What do you need right here, right now? And I'll do my best to provide that.
Right.
Then the wife becomes the mentor. And if you're willing to do those things with a good attitude, then you don't really need a couple like us helping you to heal the marriage. She can tell you what she needs in the moment. But it was when Jay turned to me and, was willing to do that in the moment with me, with no hesitation, with no bad attitude, that I thought, okay, we have a shot here, that we're getting better. I've talked about it before, but it goes back to husbands nurse her back to health, and that's like being an emergency room nurse.
Right.
This one's a big one. He treats you as his equal, not as his enemy.
Right.
It was huge when I felt Jay stopped seeing me as his enemy and started seeing, like, if I would just, like, she's good at this thing, I might be good at other things, but she's good at this, so I'm just gonna like refer to her or ask her for her thoughts on this, for her guidance, for her perspective, because her perspective is just as valuable as mine.
Right.
And it was helpful for me also to go, Jay, because he'd been showing up well, he's no longer somebody I have to fear. So it was after that we started like doing more of the well-oiled machine type living, where he appreciated me and I appreciated him. We appreciated each other and what we were able to bring to daily life together.
Right. I would say also, I think we could do several episodes on, what does a functioning addict look like, or a engaged, healthy addict look like, but that he is engaged in the process. He is engaged in the relationship. The one word that I used a lot was abdication, that I was completely tuned out. Lori had to put a lot of mental energy into every day because I was not part of what was going on. And so as the relationship gets healthier, it becomes more balanced, not me elbowing my way back in, because that's not the right way to come back from abdication, but it is more of a shared load. And there will be a time that for you guys, you're going to have to take on more of the load because she needs time to heal. How you go about taking that load on, you can't elbow your way in. So it's a dance, but
or a balance.
Yeah, it's a balance. Once the relationship is showing signs of healing, though, that is more balanced, more give and take than it was before.
And I like how Jay brought that up, because that's how he started at first. He was just like, well, we're going to do this. Because I was like, I need you to be more of a part of our spiritual walk. And he just, well, we're going to start doing this every week. And I'm like, oh, part of me was like, oh, yeah, he's stepping up. And part of me was like, oh my gosh, what,
Not like that.
yeah, what have I just signed up for? Again, guys, you do have to go at her speed if this is going to be a healing thing. So ask her, would it be helpful if,
Right.
or I have this idea, how does that sound? As you're starting this off and as she's starting to see like, okay, he's not just going to run me over. He's actually starting to become more a part of our daily life and he's helping with the heavy lifting,
Right.
you know.
And I would just key off of that. Very simple thing like taking feedback on how you drive. Right.
That's a common thing. I'm shocked at how common it is.
Yeah.
How angry guys get.
Either overly aggressive or overly passive in driving situations. And what the addict is doing is asking, what would help you feel safe right now? Oh, you need me to back off of the car in front of me. I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You need me to slow down in these situations. I can do that. That is kind of another sign that the relationship is healing, that she's able to speak and he's able to respond.
Yeah, it's called being teachable. It's called being a willing participant. There's a humility there. And again, it's treating her as an equal. I probably should have put this earlier, but an early sign that the relationship has a good chance is if he takes your pain as real. We have a whole episode on it, Treat Her Pain as Real. I think that's actually the title of it. It might be in the parentheses part of it, but I think it might have been season 2 or 3. But that is a big sign that the relationship has a really good chance of healing. If he's like able to put aside his shame or his feelings of I don't know how to make it right and just go, okay, let me treat her like I would a friend who's been mugged or had something traumatic happen to them. Let me treat her pain as real. The impact of this as a fact versus, oh, it's all in your head or you're being too sensitive.
Right. And what I would add to that is it's long term. I've had a number of guys ask me like, how come I'm struggling with this? And I said it's because they don't limp. If I was driving badly and I put us in a bad accident and she got hurt and she limped for the rest of her life, I would be able to see that there is a long-standing consequence for my actions. But because as she begins to heal, I've stopped seeing some of those visual indicators that she's injured. So if you're going to treat her pain as real, you need to treat it as real long-term, not just in this moment, but in long-term interaction.
Yeah, and I have tears coming to my eyes because I'm like, it wouldn't be a limp, it would be like scars all over, where you could see them, especially in the spots that, women in this society are, the only beautiful spots on their bodies, their face, chopping my hair off or pulling it out in big chunks, that's how I felt like it impacted me. And if those scars would heal over time with him putting, salve on them or whatever, that would have been more like it. So, and I'm glad you did that. So thank you. Okay. Take a moment. Okay. Obviously, bad conversations will become more rare. But the reason they'll become rare is because you've done the research, you've found tools that work, and you use them. And what'll happen is you'll use them and you'll start doing well, and then you might get away from them for a bit, and forget, because you guys are doing so well. And then maybe you guys both have a hard week or, something comes up that's really disruptive. And then you forget to use the tools and suddenly you guys are fighting again. Instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, we're back where we were. No, wait a second. We have tools for this. All we have to do is just go back and use those tools. And if those tools stop working, then, try some of the other ones out. But hopefully at that point, he will have seen, wait a second, I like the life that using the tools gets me.
Right.
So if this one doesn't work anymore, I'm all for finding another tool. Like, don't get me wrong, I will be open to that still, versus like, oh, those old tools didn't work and all this, however many years has been just a waste. And so I'm gonna, go back to my resistant self. So going back and using those tools as being the reason you guys have fewer bad conversations, that's a good sign. Another good sign is that you guys recover quickly. This can be used early on in the relationship. Maybe not recover quickly, but more quickly. Like the last video we just did, it could be you guys would have a month-long breakdown, and then it's a week, and then it's a couple days, and then a day, and then, anymore, me and Jay, quick ones are like, oh, okay, wow, we got over that in just a couple minutes. It was just a misunderstanding or whatever. So do understand that that's something else you can look for as well. Your body will feel at peace in the relationship, meaning less often it will be tight. For the most part, my body is much more relaxed. I used to always have knots here, and then my jaw was always tight. My hands were like this all the time, and that's not the case anymore. So your body will start being more relaxed on a regular basis. So the last two, basically overall, this is what I tell my clients, he burned your marriage down. He burned your life down. You get to put it back in the way God always meant for your life, or God always meant for your marriage. And when you start seeing those pieces come together and staying long term, I'm talking months and months and months, and then you might see a little glimpse of old him, and then you're able to use the tools and bring new him out again, or remind him of his new self, and he, is like, oh yeah, that's actually a better thing for me. It feels better. It works better for me. It works better for both of us. And he, climbs back on the wagon, and then you guys can, move on. Mm-hmm. So that's a really good sign. But ultimately, you have a plan that no matter what happens, you will continue moving forward to a great life. And that ultimately, I think, is what gives peace as your relationship heals and as you move forward in that relationship. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up this time.
Okay. Well, hi. You want to say hi again? Okay, guys. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.